Good evening, history buffs. Nice to see you all. Well, before I begin going into history, I want to say that I think what the Christmas Boat Parade has evolved into is just marvelous. It's a great event. It draws a lot of people to town. A lot of people enjoy it, and it's wonderful. And the Chamber of Commerce is fond of billing it as this year will be the 110th annual Christmas Boat Parade. Now I think that implies that there have been consecutive boat parades for 110 years. But since we are serious history people, I think we have to examine that assumption. Now, it's true, there was 110 years ago, there was a guy named John Scarpa who was a gondolier, and he hung lights on his gondola and paraded around the bay. And it is alleged that other people followed him around the bay, and they had a sort of a rudimentary parade back in the early part of the 20th century. But that must have been in the summer, because nobody did anything at Christmas. There wasn't anybody living here at Christmas time, for one thing. And the Santa Ana River flowed through the harbor, so in the rainy season you had all kinds of junk in the bay, and nobody in their right mind to go out at night. So that must have been a summer parade. And then there were the war years, World War II. There wasn't any parade for 4 years, and I assume World War I there weren't any parades. So there goes the consecutive thing, kind of, I don't think quite makes it. But there was an event that started in the 20s that went for about 25 years. It was a summer event called the Tournament of Lights. And it became more and more popular until after World War II, the city fathers, that is the police chief and the fire chief, were so upset because it drew 100,000 people to town, and they were afraid that emergency response would be difficult, and so that kind of got killed. But at about that time, actually in 1947, another event started, which was, in fact, the Christmas Boat Parade. I had a great interview with a guy named Pete Barrett, who some of you may remember. Pete died a few years ago, but he was mayor of Newport Beach at one time, a Citizen of the Year, and he had 2 kids that still live in town, and I wonder if they're here, Diane Knight and Steve Barrett. I guess they're not here. That's good, because now I can get away with saying anything. Anyway, Pete Barrett told me that in 1947, and he was a member of the Junior Chamber of Commerce at that time, and the Junior Chamber of Commerce put a Christmas tree on a barge. Can you hear me?
No.
Uh-oh.
You may have hit the switch on the mic.
Anyway, I interviewed Pete Barrett on the subject of the early days of the Christmas Boat Parade, and he told me how in 1947 they put a Christmas tree on a barge and towed it around the bay. And in subsequent years, other boats began to follow the barge around the bay, and that was the beginning of the boat parade. And I hate to admit it, but I was in high school at that time, and I lived on the bayfront, and I remember those early boat parades, and I don't remember any Christmas boat parades before that. So that date stands up. Then a few years later, oh, by the way, I should mention another guy that was instrumental in the early boat parade. His name was Art Gronsky. Okay.
Sorry, that's your
So I'm through. So anyway, after a few years, they started putting the Christmas tree on one of our ferry boats. And the ferry boat led the parade for a number of years, probably 10 years or more. With a Christmas tree on it, and with a group of city employees that sang Christmas carols riding around the bay. And it was great. And during that time, the parade gathered momentum. More and more boats were following the ferry around the bay. Then about 1971 or 72, we figured out that there were a lot of people that wanted to ride across the bay on ferry boats, and so we took that ferry boat into service as a ferry boat rather than a parade leader. And a guy named Bill Lusk stepped up with his beautiful yacht called C'est La Vie, which was 100 and some feet. And Bill Luskin, the C'est La Vie, led the parade for about 20 years, I think, into the 1990s. So if you do the math, from 1947 until this year, it would be the 72nd annual boat parade. But there was one year when there wasn't a boat parade. Who can tell me what year that? Does anybody know? 69. The weather. It was 1973, the year of the energy crisis, and couldn't put up Christmas lights, and you couldn't decorate boats or anything like that. So there was no parade in 1973. So in reality, this is the 71st Christmas boat parade. But I don't believe the Chamber of Commerce is going to use that because that doesn't sound glamorous. 110 is so great. So anyway, my son David and Jeff Parker are going to cover the modern era of the boat parade. But in the interim, I want to call up Howard Hall, one of the directors of the Historical Society, who is going to reminisce a little bit about the old days.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a very fast overlay because SEYMOUR BEEK has already covered quite a bit of it. And to me, the magical thing about the illuminated boats was that it started at a very early time. Like Seymour mentioned about the Scarpa, the gondolier that lit his boat up. What was magical about it was that the lights that were decorated on the boats at night would shine off the water, and it would just would capture people's enthusiasm. And it started early in 1907. There was a boat called the Flora. It was about a 20-foot motor launch, and it at first was just owned by the Pavilion. In 1910, it turned into a ferry boat between the Pavilion and Corona del Mar. And it was the only way to get to Corona del Mar because there were no roads to Corona del Mar. So you had to use the Flora if you wanted to get there, pretty much. And so that was started by Fred Beckwith, who was the postmaster of Balboa. And then in 1908, there was a reproduction of the Battle of Manila here in the harbor. Believe it or not, there were boats that were decorated with big fake guns and to look like some kind of a battleship fight, and they were all decorated up. Again, like Seymour mentioned, these were all summer events because that's when people were here to view them. In the wintertime, it was kind of pretty sleepy town. So in 1913, there was another water parade, although to my way of thinking, it really wasn't a parade, but anyway, it was started by Walter Gustlin, and but that only lasted that year, and then, like Seymour mentioned, in 1921, the Tournament of Lights started. Now, the reason I mention the Tournament of Lights is because along the way, I was actually in the Tournament of Lights. So what we're seeing here is an advertisement for the Tournament of Lights. Next. And this is the route of the Tournament of Lights. You'll notice that it doesn't go as far and as thorough through the harbor as the Christmas parade does today. Notice how it avoids the North Lido Channel. And also, By 1929, there were 18 power cruisers, and there were other boats towing small craft in it. So some of these craft in the Tournament of Lights, hold on this one. This is one of our motorboats at Valley Boat Rental that existed at the corner of Palm and Edgewater here in Balboa. And this was one of the motorboats that was going to tow me in the late 1940s in the Tournament of Lights. And and I was going to be towed in an aluminum canoe. Now, this aluminum canoe was leaky around the rivets in it. We had to use liquid solder to keep the thing from actually sinking out there. And my mother and my uncle convinced us that it was definitely going to be a good thing, and you're going to be Superman. Well, I had the skinniest arms you can imagine as a teenager. And so this was the most ridiculous thing that they were suggesting. So I had to dress up in a Superman outfit. I had to put padding in the arms so that I would look like something close to Superman. And the padding would always fall to the lower part of the arm, and it would look like I had muscles in reverse. So it never was very effective. But it was supposed to be Superman in his flying boat. There were wings, they put wings on this canoe. How ridiculous is that? And then next, hold on this one. Here I won an award for the most unique entry in the Tournament of Lights. Unique? Well, I was unique. I mean, I really wasn't Superman at all. Next. Then I entered in later, after the Tournament of Lights, the lights went out. Then the Christmas parade got going, and in the 70s, I entered my 25-foot Coronado, Coronado 25, and it was very primitive because all I did was take a string of lights and hoist them to the top of the mast and then outline the boat. So I would put one at the bow and one at the stern, and so it just outlined the boat. But in order to operate all this, I had to have a Honda generator because I had no way to keep these lights going. And then I had a 6-horse Evinrude outboard. At that time, they were extremely noisy. So I had this generator in front of me, the outboard behind me. I could hardly think. It was so noisy, and it was out of the question to have music too. So and I got around the route. That was all I can say. And believe me, there didn't need to be any prize. So next after that. And so that pretty much ends my presentation of being entered in the Tournament of Lights and the Christmas parade. So anyway, I pass it on now to the people that are going to cover the more modern era, where you had many floats on mega yachts, and it was extremely beautiful. So, next.
So, my name is David BEEK. I'm the son of this young fella over here, and we both obviously enjoy good taste in ties. So being televised for MBTV, this is great. This is where I can give my shameless plug for the Chamber of Commerce, Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and the Commodores Club. Actually, what the Commodores Club is we are the volunteer arm for the Chamber. So it's 35 businessmen and women in the community, and the Chamber puts on most of the larger events in Newport Beach. And what the Commodores Club does is do most of the volunteer work for them. So we do things like the police appreciation breakfast, we do the fire and lifeguard appreciation dinner, we do the Newport Beach Sandcastle contest. What else do? We do the Scholastic, Flight of the Lasers, one of the longest running regattas in the harbor. We do the Scholastic and Athletic Awards dinner for Sage, Corona del Mar, Newport Harbor High School. So you get it. We do a lot of stuff in the community, but our biggies, our Christmas card to the world is the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade, and the follow-up event, which is the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade Awards Dinner and Auction, which is at the end of January at the Island Hotel. Tickets available through the Chamber of Commerce. It's a fun party. So that's the Commodores Club. I have been on the Commodores Club now about 18 years, which placed me on the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade Committee for several years, where I really got to know the inner workings of the event. And about 10 years ago, I took over as chairperson. And for half of those 10 years, I've now had some fantastic co-chairs. Don Lorenz, Commodore Don Lorenz, and this year I shared the honor with Commodore Larry Smith, which is a great guy. So what I thought I would do is I would just go over some of the biggest changes and some of the biggest challenges that the event's had over the last couple decades. And so I'll start with a change that didn't happen all that long ago. This is just a little over 5 years ago. We partnered with Visit Newport Beach and Company. Now, Jeff Parker and the Chamber and the Commodores did a pretty good job marketing the parade. I mean, we had it pretty handled. We could do some good PR, but we could only take it to a certain level. And Visit Newport Beach, that's what they do. They're the marketing arm for the city of Newport Beach. They could take it to a much higher level than we ever could. And so they gave us more attention locally, nationally, and now even internationally, is we have the capabilities with them. For example, yesterday, all day in Times Square, the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade was up on the Jumbotron, which is, we couldn't have done that. So those are kind of some of the things that they've become available for us. Another big change is, many of you might remember, the parade used to go 7 nights. And places like the Balboa Island, the Pavilion and the yacht clubs and the restaurants and the homeowners that have Christmas parties, they love 7 nights. The liquor stores, the markets, the caterers. But who didn't like 7 nights was the participants in the parade. It's a lot of work, you guys. You go down to your boat, you decorate it, which is expensive and time consuming. You go out the first night of the parade, it's 2.5 hours doing 13-mile parade route. You put your boat away, you get up, you clean it, you do it again. And you do it again, and you do it again. Well, to ask the participants to do it 7 nights was a lot. And so a lot of the morale was going out. They were getting the wind kicked out of them. So we lowered it to 5 nights. There was a little bit of grumbling from the restaurants and the yacht clubs, but they still have 5 nights. Another big change was adding the ring of lights to the event. So as they were saying earlier, prior to, let's say, the early 90s, many of the homes on the bayfront weren't occupied. They were dark. So, you'd have a great looking house and then maybe 10 empty dark houses and then a great looking house. But in the early 90s, people started living year round in their homes along the bayfront. And we decided that that was going to be a great backdrop for the Christmas Boat Parade. So how could we incentivize people to decorate their house? So the Chamber and the Commodore started the Ring of Lights Competition Award. And on the Monday of the Christmas Boat Parade, the Monday prior to the parade, a bunch of Commodores get on a boat and we go around the harbor and we judge the homes just like we do the boats. And it was supposed to be an inspiration for people to get motivated to decorate their homes. And for the most part, it's worked. And if you look beneath me, these cattle boats and the big tour boats have now started a little side industry, because you'll see visitors coming down here weeks before the Christmas Boat Parade, filling these boats up, and they're doing home tours to see how these beautiful homes on the bay. And some of these houses are spectacular, as we all know. They put a lot of time and effort into it. Another big change is technology. So as we're talking about decorating boats, you know, as little as 15, 20 years ago, you'd get the big glass Christmas light bulbs. They required a lot of energy. They broke. They were hard to put up. They were hard to take down. They were hard to store. But now with LED technology and simple computer programs, the average boat owner can go to Home Depot, spend a couple $100 on some lights and some computer software and a little generator, and they're in the money. They can decorate their boat, and it looks better, and it's brighter, and it's more beautiful. And so technology has been another big change for the event. And last of the big changes is where the parade starts. So where the parade starts is important, and this isn't the route. The route is always counterclockwise around the 13 miles of the bay. So it's not the route, but where it starts is important because that dictates where the parade's going to pass certain places. Like, for example, if you started at the ferry, it's going to pass here 30 seconds later, right? So it's wherever, depending on where it started, it was great for some people, but it was unfair to other people. So for many, many years, it started off Collins. Does everybody remember that? And it went up the North Bay front, and it was a good start point. It was a little dangerous. Boats had to funnel into that little channel off the North Bay front. But it worked, and then we started getting bigger boats, but still a lot of the harbor was getting gypped because they wouldn't get the parade till 8:30, 9 o'clock, and a lot of it had been broken up. And so we moved it about 15, 20 years ago to Bay Island. Bay Island worked pretty well. Still a little dangerous. You had to funnel in between the mooring field and Bay Island. But still, a lot of the harbor was getting gypped. So about 3 years ago, the city built this big, beautiful new facility called Marina Park. Has everybody been to Marina Park? It's incredible. And what quickly became, what began happening when Marina Park started its first year for the first parade, we had thousands of spectators go down to Marina Park. And Marina Park immediately became the official epicenter, kind of the Christmas boat parade headquarters. The next year, as Marina Park was now landscaped and had grass and it was completed, thousands more people for the 5 nights of the event. So we moved the parade last year, the start point off the end of Lido Island. And now the whole south side of Lido gets a parade. The Marina Park, 1,000 spectators get a great parade. The American Legion now and the residents along that side of the peninsula now get a wonderful parade. Newport Harbor Yacht Club just built a brand new, beautiful clubhouse. They're going to have a beautiful parade for their first Christmas in their new clubhouse, and it might even be their best year ever. So there you go, Dad. So those are some of the big changes. Some of the biggest challenges for the parade over the last couple decades, volunteers. 5 nights, again. So let's take the Balboa Island Parade, for example. It's one morning, on one Saturday morning. Still, they need volunteers. Those volunteers work very hard, but they only need one group of volunteers for that event. We're basically 5 parades. We run 5 consecutive nights. You need to get volunteers to run this event. If you've been out on the water during the parade, there's Duffys everywhere. There are private boats everywhere. There's the big commercial boats everywhere. And somehow or another, you have to get a parade through this. So we have these volunteers that go out and help get the parade well dressed. They keep it moving on time and on schedule. And we need to get boats for all those volunteers. The chamber doesn't own an armada of dinghies, so we have to get private citizens to donate their boats. Yacht clubs donate boats. Big challenge. Then we have to get them all trained. They have to know what to do, what to say, where they are in the bay. All those things are important. Another big challenge is getting the large boats. So we have a lead boat. As y'all know, my dad was talking about C'est La Vie, Bill Lusk's boat. But that's really cool that Bill Lusk would give his big boat for 7 nights in those days. But we still have to get a lead boat. That means someone has to donate their big boat for 5 nights. We need a boat for Santa Claus. Pretty important. Christmas boat parade needs a Santa Claus. My friend Mike Waller right here is Santa boat and Santa Claus some years. We need a boat to put the Grand Marshals on. We instigated this Grand Marshal program where you need a platform to display your Grand Marshal as you go around the bay. So if you are an owner of a big boat and you'd like to volunteer it for us, we're available after the dinner. And then one of the biggest challenges, of course, is to get people to participate in the parade, to get people to decorate their boats and go out and dedicate the 5 nights to do it. Because without them, I'm not up here speaking with you. There's no Christmas boat parade without those people. They're the heroes of the event. So if you have friends or neighbors, or you see someone in the store and they're decorating their boat for the parade, give them a pat on the back, thank them, because they really are the heroes of the Christmas boat parade. The biggest challenge, which is going to sound funny, is getting 5 Santa Clauses a week before Christmas. There isn't a Santa Claus tree. You go out in the backyard and get your Santa Clauses. So you have to get 5 Santa Clauses. They have to be animated and loud and good actors. They have to have their own authentic Santa Claus costume. They have to know Newport Harbor. You know, they're saying Merry Christmas Pavilion, Merry Christmas Balbayaca. So they have to know the geographics of the harbor. And they have to do it for free. A week before Christmas, which is their busiest time of the year. So I'm glad to say that we do have our 5 Santas for this year. We're locked and loaded, which is good, beginning in November. Jeff, just so you would know that. So anyway, we're going to do some questions and answers after Jeff's done speaking. So what I would like to do now is, you probably have heard his voice at some point. He's the voice of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce. He's the voice of the Newport Beach Christmas Boat Parade. He's the vice president of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce. He's been doing this for over a quarter century. My good friend, Jeff Parker.
All right, I think we are ready. So you guys having a good time so far tonight? Is this enjoyable? Huh? Well, I wanted to first thank Peggy for asking me to do this. I've known Peggy for quite a long time and was happy to do this, speak about an event that I love so much and so many of us in this room are so familiar with. And thanks to the Historical Society for inviting us as well. I noticed on the invitation that it had said festive holiday attire, but I have 2 daughters, and when I told them I was going to come out in the Christmas attire, my youngest daughter said, "Dad, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. You cannot do this." And so this is my after the Thanksgiving meal festive outfit. I thought that'd be appropriate for it. But I'm ready for Christmas. I hear the music and we're set and ready to go. So, and I also noticed that my positioning in the program, I'm going last, which is, according to my friend, I talked to one friend, he said, "You're last. That's like the most important part of the presentation. That's great. That's where all the important stuff is." And then I talked to another friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, no, that's where we put the speakers that hopefully don't get offended as people are walking out while you're talking." So I'll let you decide which of those it should be. But you had the history already covered by the gentlemen that have spoken before me, and they're actually in the room. So I'm just going to speak very, very briefly, and then we'll open up to Q&A on where the parade has come today. And Peggy wanted me just to share some funny stories that had happened over the years with my role being on the lead boat for there. Just so you know, my role, again, I'm the COO at the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and basically that means for the parade purposes, I'm in charge of all of at the end of the day, a lot of the logistics that happen for the parade, all the marketing. I work with our partners, Newport Beach and Company, and Visit Newport Beach, of course, do a fantastic job. Work with the city and all of the folks there as well. We manage all the websites, all the reservations for the registrants, all of the back-end detail. And it's a full-time job, I will tell you. We have a staff of people that work very, very hard that we're proud of. But basically, the way that I started out on the lead boat was many years ago, about 24 years ago actually when I started it, I was on the lead boat, and then again, we have a lead boat that goes, then all the boats come in between, and then we have a Santa boat. And I was out there, and it was just boring, because there was no music, there was no sound, there was no commentary, there was nothing really happening, and you had all these people on the shore that were cheering wildly, and nothing really was happening. And my former background was in radio and the nightclub industry, and I said, all right, well, let's just bring some music out here onto this boat. And eventually we kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so now I bring out a full giant concert sound system on the boat. We have lighting systems, and a lot of the boats are following suit and are doing some amazing things with all the technology today. But that's how it started way back then. We figured out the other day the number 3,500. What do you think that number is? You have any idea what that could be? Number of boats. I wish it were the number of boats, right? That's 3,500 is the number of times that I say Merry Christmas during the 5 nights of the boat parade, okay? Now, we did the math, I'm not kidding. Either Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever it is. So you figure I've been doing it for over 25 years. That's a lot of Merry Christmases that the voices, that this holds up for it. So it's a lot of fun, though. But as you know, this is the largest signature event in Newport Beach. It has a huge economic impact on the city, over $6 million to be exact. We had some studies that were done trying to demonstrate just what this does for all of our restaurants, our boat charters, caterers, florists, everybody that touches the parade. It's a huge, huge impact. Yes, of course, how do we, that's it. And so obviously that's become a big, huge part of it. We have media attention, as you can see on the screens. We're covered on every major network across the country. As David pointed out, we're even in Times Square this year, which is just amazing. We've had our Grand Marshal program. We have had the Royal Court from the Tournament of Roses on the parade boats. We've had Mickey Mouse in the past now serve on there. We actually had the Main Street Electrical Parade, you can see on the pictures here, put a boat in before. So the parade has really, really evolved over the years into an international event that has grown from the very humble beginnings. We have boats that are sometimes 10 feet. We have boats that are 110 feet and larger, boats that have video on them, boats that have stories behind them. We have, of course, El Navigante that spits fire out, which is just amazing. So the boating has just really elevated, along with all the homes that are there as well. We have fireworks, of course, on opening night and closing night, thanks to the city of Newport Beach helping sponsor that. The Chamber does the other night for fireworks. We've been featured on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and we've just really, really expanded thanks to all the participants and the hundreds of boaters and volunteers that have worked with us. Couple of funny stories just for you I just wanted to share, and then we'll move on from there. We have also received a lot of phone calls over the years at the Chamber of Commerce. In fact, one year we charted this. We had 6,234 phone calls related to the boat parade. And of course, this was several years ago before the web. Hopefully the web has taken a lot of that off our burden. But we have received some phone calls that you just really wouldn't believe. And I wanted to share a couple of those with you, just so that you know what we're dealing with sometimes. We actually had some woman spend time arguing with me on the phone for about 15 or 20 minutes because she and her family were going to be here in April and wanted to know why we could not change the dates of the parade around her family. So we eventually said, I'm sorry, I wish we could. It is a Christmas boat parade or a holiday boat parade. So we worked through that one together. I had a 15-minute discussion with somebody who was convinced that she knew the parade backwards and forwards, but she was mentioning all kinds of businesses and places that I'd never heard of. Finally, she figured out that she's in Newport, Rhode Island, and not here in Newport Beach, so we dealt with that. But my favorite phone call of all the years, I had a woman call me who was dead serious and said, now look, Jeff, I don't know how she got my cell number, but she did. We're going to take our holiday portrait. We have a home on the harbor. We have hired a photographer who is going to take our big family picture. We have everyone coming in. I don't know which boat I want to have in the background during the parade, so I'm going to call you on the lead boat, and you need to stop the parade so that I can get maybe 3 or 4 boats in the background for our holiday picture. I loved her. I thought that was the greatest request I had ever received, and we never really got there, unfortunately. But people are very passionate about this parade, and obviously that shows by request of that. We've had some funny things happen. We had, from the lead boat perspective, where I'm out there every night doing all the announcing, so I see a lot of things that happen. We actually had a girl come running down on the pier, very excited, or on the dock, running, so excited to see the parade because the lead boat was coming. She was probably 13 or 14 years old, just running, and clipped her feet right into the drink, right into the harbor. We, of course, on the lead boat slammed on, stop everything, do it. She shouts up, I'm okay, and we kept going. So we had our first one there. We had our Santa inflatable one year, 2 minutes before we were supposed to start. Actually completely just got a hole and started deflating. So you can imagine a 45-foot inflatable Santa, and I actually have a picture here. That's the size of the Santa. That's with us repairing him actually in front of my offices that are there, but we've had Santa actually go through that kind of work. One year we had laser systems that we put on one of the boats that you could see for miles around, which I thought was a great idea for a while until I got a call from the FAA. Again, don't know how they got my cell number. That's your government at work, but they said, you realize that what you're doing is you are misdirecting flights coming into John Wayne because they think that those are landing lights of some kind. So we've had that challenge before. My special event director, Karen Graves, who now lives in Hawaii, she's a wonderful person, but she was in charge of bringing approximately 40 gallons of clam chowder made here in Newport Beach to one of the boats, and she was running behind in her car, so she had all of this chowder in the back ready to go. If you've been driving around during the holidays, especially during the boat parade, you know that there's a little bit of traffic that can be there. Slammed on her brakes. The entire car was just, interior was covered. And for those of you that have not had clam chowder in your upholstery, I can assure you that does not work. And we've had pouring rain to the point where it was just torrential downpours. But we have a rule at the boat parade, unless it is gale force winds, that parade goes on, because we have a lot of businesses that are relying on that income. We have a lot of families that have come a long ways to see this parade. So even when it's a torrential downpour, we still go. And there's some great things that happen also behind the scenes. It's not just some of these kind of odd stories that you hear, but we've had boaters take out whole groups of children from homes and shelters that would never get to experiencing anything like this. And they come out. These are behind the scenes things that don't always hit the newspapers for obvious reasons. We had a young boy who entered the parade whose grandfather used to be in the parade, and he wanted to actually put a boat in, and it was like a 10-foot boat, and he was fabulous. We had a marriage proposal last year. We actually had someone contact me and said, I'm going to make a sign off the lead boat. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, oh, of course I would. That'd be great. It was the most stressful night of my life because I didn't want to make sure that I didn't blow it, but it all worked out, and she said yes. So all of these things are part of this amazing event that you are all part of. And I know for some of you, whether you live here, whether you work here, if you live here, I know it's an impact on you. There's a million people that come down to see this parade over the course of 5 nights. But if you saw the looks on the faces of these people, as I do where I'm sitting on the boat, and you see the excitement, you see the kids, you see the passion that these people have for the parade and how they cheer and how they get excited about everything, it's all worth it. It's part of the fabric of Newport Beach. And I will tell you, I've been to a lot of other boat parades, and there's just nothing like it. This is a unique community. I've been fortunate to work here for many, many years, but this is really our postcard to the world, as David alluded to earlier. And we're just very happy to be the stewards of this parade and the kind of caretakers of it. We don't really like to say we own the parade. We're just kind of caretakers of it. So we really, really hope that you'll come out and support it. If you haven't seen it in a while, we ask you to come out and kind of rediscover the parade. And if you're ever interested in volunteering, we'd love to have your help. And come out December 19th through the 23rd and join us on the water. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
So our speakers really were able to just give you all a little bit of the magic of this event, and I wanted to thank them all for their time and participation in sharing the early years and some of the fun stories, the history, and of course all of the amazing stories of the Christmas boat parade here in Newport Beach.